Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Health Made Simple Show. I'm your host, Dr. Bart. Today is episode 266, I believe. So if you've been here before, thanks for coming back. We appreciate it. If you're here for the first time, thanks for being here. Appreciate that you're here. Hopefully we'll gain something from today's episode that makes you walk away from this thinking, man, it's good information for me to know. It's easy for me to apply. And yes, health can be simple as long as I'm willing to take action. And remember, folks, always, this is part of the message that I'm going to continuously share with you all, is that health is simple. We are designed to be healthy. We are strong. We are vital. We are designed in the eyes of perfection. And it's our job to get out of the way at times. Meaning that let's stop interfering. Let's stop putting the junk into our body that poisons us. Let's stop interfering with our sleep. Let's stop interfering with the emotions to keep us from vibrating at a high level. All right. With all that being said, let's dive right in. So today's episode, we are going to talk once again about antibiotics. And if you've been with me before, you've heard me talk about this conversation several times, and I will continue to talk about it because the truth is, a lot of people still out there using them a whole bunch. And I will start by saying this, no doubt about it, antibiotics have probably saved thousands of lives, if not millions of lives. No doubt about that. And I will also say that it's harmed thousands, if not millions of lives. But let me put this in context and help you understand. So originally designed, antibiotics were supposed to be there to help save our lives, correct. So they're supposed to be used in these very challenging situations where we have no other opportunity but to go in and destroy some of the most important components of the human body, which is our microbiome, simultaneously trying to kill off things like bacteria. So knowing that this is something that's very harmful to the human body, it should be used very sparingly. Unfortunately, today, as a result of convenient healthcare, not true healthcare, but convenient healthcare, we are leaning into the use of antibiotics for pure convenience, just like we see so many of the habits today and the patterns and the policies and even the actions that we see people taking is a result of convenience, not because it's good for us, not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's convenient. And I will continue to tell you here at the Health Made Simple podcast that to be healthy, it's going to be inconvenient, uncomfortable, and unfamiliar. That is the journey, folks. And hopefully you just get that and go, I get it. And it doesn't make you frown upon it. That's not cynicism. It is just part of being healthy. We're going to have to step up a little bit. Here's the challenge with antibiotic use today. So we use it for convenience massively, get a little bit of head cold, stuffiness. Oh, I had a stuffy nose for 3 days. And quite frankly, we've just gotten a little bit soft when it comes with our health. And we're being taught regularly. We turn on the TV, you see a commercial. Oh, you got a headache, you got hay fever. Take this, make it go away. Well, you know what, folks? Our body has an innate immune system. And this innate immune system is perfect. That's the thing that gives us a little bit of watery eyes, runny nose. This is part of the innate immune system that is trying to protect you, trying to help develop antibodies along the way and keep your good microbiome in place so it can defend itself in the present and in the future. That being said, here's some of the things that are taking place. The reason I bring you this podcast, and again, want to continue to educate you about the use of antibiotics, and please don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying there's not a place for them. I'm saying that there is a place for them, and it should be in life and death situations. Because if not, and we're just using them for convenience, there's a lot of side effects that many people don't see, and I'm going to share some of those with you today. I'll give you number one, and I don't know if these are in any particular order, but it is very common that we see people after using antibiotics start to gain weight, and it usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks out. Here's the simple mode of action here. You go in, you take some round of antibiotics trying to get rid of a head cold or some kind of sinus infection, whatever it may be. Who knows why you're taking it? It could be anything. It could be prophylactic because you went to the dentist. It could be in any reason. You take antibiotics and it kills off the bad bacteria, but simultaneously killing off your good bacteria. And when that happens, your vulnerability now goes up. Your immune system is directly correlated to especially your microbiome in your gut. And as a result of killing this off and breaking it down, we change things. We change things like your pH. We change the way that your body's responding. We start to develop something called dysbiosis. That just basically means that you have more bad bacteria growing in your gut than you do good. And in this moment is when your gut starts to say, you know what? I don't want those good healthy foods anymore. In fact, we would thrive if you would continue to feed us carbohydrates and sugar. So it'll send you messages to your brain saying, please eat that bread, eat that cake, eat those cookies. So usually what happens is about 6 to 8 weeks later, when there's more dysbiosis in the gut, and you may not have any gut issues as this is coming along, your body starts to crave carbohydrates. So we see it clinically all the time that 6 or 8 weeks later, the diet now leans away from animal proteins and leaning into more carbohydrates. And it starts to perpetuate itself faster and faster. So it's not uncommon that we'll see 6 to 8 weeks out weight gain. And I'm going to come back to this in just a moment, because there's a chance that one round of antibiotic can kill off certain parts of your healthy microbiome that destroy your ability to lose weight. And I'll come back to that in just a moment, but listen closely there. Some other symptoms that are often not correlated, but definitely are a correlation. People just don't put the two together, is skin health. So acne, psoriasis, eczema, all of these things go back to gut health. And what's probably the single biggest detrimental thing that we're doing to our guts, and that's antibiotic use. Probably side by side with that is consuming glyphosate. And the challenge is, usually the more antibiotics you consume, they go hand in hand with the more carbohydrates you want, and that's where all the glyphosate is. And the glyphosate's a whole nother podcast, but nonetheless, it's beating up our guts. So weight gain, skin issues, bloating, disruption in how we feel and how our mood is. So most of us pretty much know that there's a lot of these neurotransmitters that are birthed in our gut microbiome, things like serotonin or maybe even dopamine. A lot of the neurotransmitters begin there, then they kind of go up into the brain and then they get matured there. But nonetheless, if we break down our microbiome in our gut, we start to see more symptoms like anxiety, more symptoms like depression. And this is all started because of the convenience or not wanting to be inconvenienced by a little bit of a head cold or building up your immune system properly so you can defend yourself. And again, I'm not telling us there's not a place for antibiotics. What I'm saying is that there should be a very specific place for antibiotics, and using them for convenience is a very, very slippery slope. Bowel movement changes, acne I mentioned just a moment ago here. Often we'll start to see depletion of energy because our immune system is derived in the gut itself. So if our immune system is losing its battle, we will then start to lose some energy, etc. So I'm going to move forward here and talk about some other things. So let's talk about the solutions here and some of the things we need to do, and I'll swing back to the whole weight gain thing in just a moment here. So some of the solutions is simple. If you have to go on a round of antibiotics, make sure it's an and world, A-N-D. So you go on a round of antibiotics, and simultaneously, you're going to use some probiotics and even some prebiotics. We do this with all of our patients, all of our clients, all the time. And listen, it's okay. You should have a provider that you are in, communication with, or is on your team, that you can say, hey, listen, doc, I know you're not a huge fan of antibiotics. Maybe they are or not. But if I'm going to take these, I know that I'm going to destroy. I know I'm going to kill off my very valuable microbiome in my gut. I'm going to kill it off as I'm trying to chase down this bacteria and kill it off. What can I do to preserve and rebuild up my own microbiome? That needs to be the question, folks. This is an and world. How do we do both? And so the answer to that question is we start using things like prebiotics. We use probiotics. Are there a bunch of different types? Yes. Are there some specific ones that we use in clinic? Yes. And I'll share those with you, and I'll make sure there's a link in the notes here below. The one that we use, if you're on an antibiotic, we start you with one's called Zymex. It's a wafer. It's just this little thing that you chew. It won't interfere with the use of your antibiotics, and that's important. So if you're going to take them, we want them to work. But we also want to support your natural microbiome so it doesn't get destroyed and you can continue to create good balance with it. So that's number one. I also use another one called pro-symbiotic, especially if it's post-use of antibiotics. Pro-symbiotics made through standard process, which I probably use 90% of what I utilize in terms of vitamins, herbs, and supplements come through them. They're a whole food company up in Wisconsin. They're the best probably supplement company in the world, simply based. They have their own farms, which is great. They've concocted a pro-symbiotic, which is a prebiotic and a probiotic together. Very intelligent product. I love using this one, especially for people who have used antibiotics. So listen, and no shame if you have. I grew up on antibiotics, and this is where I'm going to start to bring in some other things, talk about what happens when you do that. So I grew up on antibiotics. It's not because my mom didn't love me. She simply didn't know any better. No one ever shared her with this information, that the fact that you're giving your son antibiotics on a regular basis, every time he gets an ear infection, every time he has a sinus infection, each time that this happens, we're breaking down his microbiome. For me, what did it look like? I didn't gain the weight. That wasn't my issue. But I had allergies, asthma, and acne. All of them a direct correlation to repetitive use of antibiotics. And listen, I don't expect any of your general practitioners, most docs, even the functional medicine docs, are probably not going to correlate those three, but I will tell you, they are all correlated, and it often goes back to too much of your microbiome gets broken down. You start to develop food allergies. The food allergies do not come first. They come afterwards. They come after the leaky gut, after the broken down microbiome, after the dysbiosis. So that was me young. I grew up on them. Now, here's the interesting thing. There are some parts of our microbiome, the good bacteria, that you can take one round of antibiotics and kill off certain groups, certain colonies of this good bacteria for the rest of your life. It could be completely void and you don't know it. I'm going to give you an example of one that I never even heard of. This particular type of bacteria, good bacteria, probably until about 7 years ago. It's called Akkermansia. I might be saying that a little bit wrong, but Akkermansia. And Akkermansia, we find that is super important for several things. One, we find that it's really high in people that are lean, and it's really low in people that have obesity. As they do further studies, they recognize that it boosts, listen closely, folks, because this is a big connection here. Akkermansia boosts GLP-1s. That is what helps us feel satiated. That's what tells us to stop eating. That is what everyone is, spending tons of money right now pumping this stuff into their body because their body's deficient of it. And what I'm saying on this podcast today is that it is because of our long-term use of antibiotics that we have broken down the bacteria that is responsible for helping us produce these GLP-1s, Akkermansia being one of them. The reason I'm pointing that particular one out is that at least 50% of the stool test that I take, whether we're doing a GIIQ or a GI map test, we use a couple different companies, 50%, the Akkermansia will show up at 0, non-existent, which means if you're listening to me out there and you've always had a hard time losing weight, you've always had a hard time with diet control, with some of the disciplines around it, and you think maybe I'm a bad person, maybe I just don't have that emotional or physical or spiritual discipline, maybe it has nothing to do with that. Maybe it's been completely voided in your gut microbiome and you don't develop the GLPs that are help you become satiated. So when I say that there's hidden dangers behind antibiotic use, that was just one, folks. I could go on, and I could talk about different ones. We're now testing one for something called it's called oxalobacteriopharynges. And this test to see if you still have the good bacteria that helps break down oxalates. Many of you have heard about oxalates before, many of you have not, but just quick story on that. Oxalates are something that you find, especially in things like spinach. A lot of vegetables have them, and that is the compound, chemical, if you want to call it, that spinach uses to try to make sure nobody eats it, the animals and stuff like that. It's kind of like the poison it uses to make sure other species don't eat it so it can survive. That's its survival method, is to have a lot of oxalates in it, and they're not good for humans. And a lot of healthcare practitioners, a lot of functional medicine docs say, well, too many oxalates is not good for us. Well, it's not true that the oxalates by themselves are not good for us. It's the inability to break them down. And again, all it takes is one round of antibiotics, one time, and we don't know unless we test for this. We don't know what you're deficient in. We don't know what you don't have until you test for it. And I will tell you this, when we test for oxalopharynges bacterium, we find that over 50%, probably 75% of the people walking around out there have null and void 0, not any, which means that when you eat foods with oxalates, now you have an inflammatory process going in your body. I happen to be one of them. So for me, I ended up with almost 0 Akkermansia, 0 oxalobacteriopharynges. I had many of these markers down, but it made sense. I literally used antibiotics growing up. I don't know how many times, but I would probably say I've been on at least 20 or 30 rounds. I haven't been on probably in a decade or two, but nonetheless, I grew up on them. And you could destroy that bacterium and you can create dysbiosis and just deal with it, but maybe not in a healthy way. So that being said, keeping all this as simple as can be. Use antibiotics very cautiously. If you're going to use them, be proactive, run the AND world, use things like GI Stability, which is a prebiotic that we love to use. We use Zymex if you're taking an antibiotic during, and if you're taking an antibiotic, you can use Zymex during that treatment. And then if you are just looking for a good probiotic, I typically start with something called ProSymbiotic. It's a pre and probiotic. My typical strategy with probiotics is to rotate. So I'm not looking for any particular product that has the, 50 billion, a gazillion. I'm not looking for the one that has the most of anything. What I'm looking for is something, I'm looking for multiple strands from multiple colonies from multiple different farms, so we can continue to provide as many opportunities as we possibly can for a microbiome, because we technically do not know. We know a lot about the gut microbiome, but we're still learning a lot about it as well. So that strategy there to rotate your probiotics is a good proactive move. And I would say from the future of this, listen, more often than not, when you fight through and you don't use the antibiotic, you survive. It is uncomfortable, I know. It's inconvenient, no doubt about it. Yet, you always end up on the stronger side of that. And if you find yourself getting sick often, do a gut check. Literally do a gut check. Find what other parts of your life are just incongruent. Your body never lies to you. So if you're getting sick, if you're breaking down easy, it means that something is incongruent. You haven't spent the time to build up your immune system. Maybe it was things that happened in the past. Maybe your life is too stressful. Maybe you have a crap diet. Maybe those things are all adding up. And as a result, you're getting sick more often. The good news is that your body was designed to be healthy. And our job, just as humans, as people trying to be healthier, our job is just to get out of the way. And if we do that, we can watch miracles happen every single day. All right, folks, with that being said, I'll make sure that in the notes here today, there's opportunities you can see the different supplements that I recommended today for prebiotics and probiotics, or if you're on an antibiotic, which one to take. If you're interested and you want to do a consult or you want to do a stool test, if you've never done one and you know you've been on a bunch of antibiotics in the past, I highly recommend it. Sometimes it's very telltale and gives you a very good strategy of what to do next in terms of what types of foods or what types of probiotics or very specifics that you may or may not need. All right, with that being said, folks, keep doing your thing. Make sure you keep leveling up and always taking deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.